2200.
I wanna have some fun.
XZ effect.
Getting a little
Two
tired of
monsters.
practicing the meta all the
Once per turn,
time.
you can detach one XZ material from the card to special summon two Mecha
There's more to this
Phantom
game than
Beast
that.
tokens.
You
Machine
know?
type wind, level 3, attack 0, defense 0. While you control a token, this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Once per turn, you contribute one Mecha Phantom Beast monster. Then target one card on the field to destroy that target. This card cannot attack during the turn you activated this effect. Okay.
If you want the token, I sent that to you as well.
Oh, thank you. That's...
Yeah. It's just a little cute guy.
Oh my god. Yeah, it actually is just a little cute guy. After the nonsense I was looking at, this actually looks very normal. This card can be used. Oh, thank you. If you hadn't specified, I wouldn't know what to do with it. If used for another token, apply that token. Okay, sure, whatever. Man, it's one of the like board in a boxes from Magic where you play one thing, but it's actually three things. But you have to give
And it could be 5 things if it lives a turn.
Once per turn, detach a material. There are two.
Damn, I kinda missed the cards being big.
Yeah, on top of stuff. This thing can't be destroyed unless you get rid of the little tokens. And then once per turn, you can make 2 tokens as long as you got some. So, like, gosh, I'm picturing like this in multiples because it's a rank 7. It's not a level 7. This can't special summon another copy of itself, right?
Correct. It's just special summoning the token.
Okay, I'm figuring that stuff out. Still, oh man, you buy yourself some time. They get rid of the tokens, like you can reload this, you know, bounce it, bring it back, play another one. Just keep making tokens. Sounds so annoying. And it's like you have to kill the tokens because they can also just destroy targets.
Yep.
So it's not like you can ignore the tokens that just sit there being 0/0s. They actually wreck things. There are a lot of cards like this, and they do tend to get rather loved in Magic of the things that just make more things. But these particular things are particularly destructive. It's not often you can just pitch the little things that came with it to destroy stuff, unless you have other cards that do that. And this is all contained in and of itself. That's crazy. That's gotta be.
That was a really good hit. What the fuck?
Dude, it's a lot to get through, right?
It is.
I mean, if you're talking about making the game take a little longer, I bet this does. It's probably a lot harder to OTK somebody through one or two, through like this and some tokens.
Correct. It is.
Is that good for the game or is that bad for the game?
I don't know. I'll tell you after.
Seems pretty good for the game to me. I'm not.
This is I want to say this is 2013 or 2014 because I know you're going to ask me that next. 2013. Yep, 2013.
It's an older Yu-Gi-Oh. I think they actually liked these end games. I bet this was very. It was very fun to go against this over and over and over and over. But it's probably the answers. I mean, just you can AoE stuff, right? That works. You destroy everything on the field, this goes away.
The tokens die, Draco Sack stays alive.
You're making me think this got banned. I don't know. The vibes of not even being sure how those interactions happen sound like they were just like, all right, everybody's doing this, get rid of it. This is making games a nightmare. Both sides are playing this and making more of these and making more of these and just playing another one and another one. That's the vibe.
I checked the official rulings. Yes, that's how it works.
Okay. Hey, you have a place.
Okay, so the reason for context is because I did not get back. I was taking a hiatus during this time, so I only got back into playing like right after this card. So I didn't like have the full-on experience of playing against this all the time. So that's the reason.
Is this why you took a hiatus? Is it the
this is not the reason I took a hiatus. No. This is not the reason.
Okay,
No. My hiatus was 6 years prior to this.
Okay, fair. I mean, I just picture like 3 of these in all the decks and just going back and forth with I make these, I blow up these, I kill these, I make more of these, I go.
That's really interesting you say that. That's really interesting you say that.
It sounds like a nightmare. It sounds like a real pain in the ass because this. So if card draw if card draw is at a premium, this is card advantage on the board, and it just keeps happening. And you have to deal with every bit of it. And it honestly doesn't even feel, it doesn't feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! Has all the resources to deal with all of this. Like, this might be out generating resources for the game, aside from like crazy max C turns and stuff. Like it just feels like the card draw is so rare that, like, oh my gosh, this does feel like a nightmare. I'm gonna say restricted, because I think that would solve a lot of problems, because I think what's dangerous about this card is everybody runs 3, and they just, as soon as you finally get through one and you like spend so many resources on it, they just play another, and it's like, fuck. So restricted is my take.
So not banned. Because I don't care about if it's restricted or not. You don't think it's banned or not banned, CGP? You're not getting like bonus points.
I think one's not the worst, but I could be wrong. Not banned.
Okay. Not banned?
Just restricted.
You got it. You're correct. You got it.
Okay.
Oh, man. So, all right, let's give you some context around Draco Sack. Everything you said is pretty accurate. So, Draco Sack was pretty much the hallmark card around this time that was the centerpiece of what was the best deck and what is actually considered one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks of all time prior to Tier Element existing, called Dragon Rulers. Maybe I'll show you those one day. But basically, in short, there are a bunch of level 7s that can easily special summon themselves out to the field, which means Draco Sack was very easy for them to make. Draco Sack was a secret rare, which is the highest rarity in the set, and as a result, Draco Sack was like $200 a copy, because basically, this was like one of the, if not the best card that you could be playing. Your opening turn 1 play would typically consist of bringing out 2 guys, make Draco Sack, make 2 tokens, and you're pretty much like off to the races at that point. And you can have multiple Draco Sacks for follow-up turns.
I did nothing.
The deck also played Big Eye, so what would happen is sometimes is you'd go turn 1 open with Draco Sack. Your opponent could make a Big Eye, steal your Draco Sack, then detach the material and summon 2 tokens on their field. Now they have Draco Sack and the Big Eye, and this is actually what a lot of people consider to be some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it was very back and forth. It was very skill intensive. I'm actually kind of sad that I didn't play during this time, because even though a lot of people got priced out of this format because of how expensive it was, historically, it's very easy to pick a lot of these cards up now, so people have kind of been able to re-explore this format, and as long as you don't mind playing the mirror match, because similar to Tier Element, that's kind of what it was, it's a very fun and interesting mirror match, just because there's a lot of counterplay, there's a lot of just really cool stuff you can do, and Draco Sack was sort of the piece that brought it all together, and very powerful card, very pushed card, but never got banned. They actually ended up banning a lot of the other cards in the archetype, and as a result, the deck sort of fell out of playability, and Draco Sack just kind of fell to the wayside, because if the deck that was playing it was no longer playable, then you don't need to ban Draco Sack. So, yeah, just a phenomenal card, and actually has seen modern play as well because of the token producing ability that has actually come up for several reasons that we won't get into for this video, but still good enough to see modern play, which is how you know the card is very powerful, very powerful.
Wowie. What a ridiculous card. What a ridiculous art.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. It's kind of crazy, but people love it. People love it. Okay, next card.
Number 101, Silent Honor Arc. Water, rank 4, 2100 attack, 1000 defense, Aqua, XZ effect, 2 level 4 monsters. You can detach 2 XZ materials from this card, then target 1 special summon monster your opponent controls in face-up attack position. Attach it to this card as a face-up XZ material. You can only use this effect of number 101 Silent Honor Arc once per turn. If this face-up card would be destroyed, you can detach 1 XZ material from this card instead. Okay, so you play it, there's 2 things under it, you detach the 2 things, the opponent's special summoned face-up attack position monster goes under this, and then when you try to destroy this, instead that monster goes to their graveyard, in theory.
So a very unique removal effect.
Yeah. Is this the hard once per turn?
That is the hard once per turn, yes. So you would not be able to summon a second Silent Honor Arc in the same turn, and, well, you could summon it, you just can't use the effect.
You do have to target the thing, and it can only be a special summoned monster, but there's everything special summoned.
I would say, if anything, the attack position is more of the qualifier here than if it was special summoned.
And also, it doesn't destroy it. It makes it a material. So if there was something that prevented destruction, if you were using a Silent Honor on a Silent Honor, the preventing it wouldn't work? Okay.
Correct.
Okay,
That was actually not uncommon to see when this card was printed.
Yeah, I imagine it's not a common line of text.
Or, for instance, Draco Sack, right? Draco Sack has the protection from being destroyed by battle or card effects, but it doesn't say anything about being targeted. So if they left their Draco Sack in attack position, you could just suck it up with Silent Honor Art.
Well, then you've got to have this card around. It's a unique removal effect. It feels like
Final answer?
Almost. It does feel like a very legit role player, you know? It does. Like this, you've got to have the answers to the weird situations, or the weird situations become the whole, like when you create in a meta, when you find the thing that basically gets around all of the potential removal the opponent's played, the game just becomes around that thing. So you got to have answers. If there's no answers, the meta's homogenous. I don't know. Right now, like, I'm going to read it again, but right now it looks fine. I don't have a reaction to this that upsets me per se. I bet it's annoying, but you only get around the destruction once. The attack is high. It's a good attack, but it's not insane. The defense is pretty low, so going to battle with this, a lot of things would kill it. So let's see. What is busted here? I mean, it's good. I'm not saying it's not good. It's very good, but what's busted? Target one special summon monster your opponent controls. And it does have those guardrails. It has to be face-up attack position. I imagine many
not
are.
anything.
I imagine many are, but it is a very specific thing. You attach it as material. It's limited to once per turn, a hard limit. It would be destroyed. I mean, the fact that you can take something and it doesn't go to their graveyard might just take them off a key piece indefinitely.
Very perceptive.
That still seems like a good thing to me, because again, I'm like, don't just play solitaire and get away with it. I think that the game is better when you can keep people from just getting away with playing solitaire. So it's good that you can take away a key piece and they can't get it back until they deal with this. And some decks just might not want to run much removal, although I'm sure in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, with removals attached to everything, that's easier. I'm not gonna say this got banned. I love it, but this is a not banned, just good old friendly card. Everybody loves this card, I bet.
Final answer?
Yeah.
You're correct.
Okay.
You
I
are
didn't mean to
correct.
pick going
Silent
first.
Honor Arc is a phenomenally designed card. I love that it has just a very unique way to remove stuff from the field that sort of plays around protection from destruction or things like that. It's one of those cards that, especially when it was first printed, when it was very popular,
whatever,
it's one
I'm
of those
gonna
cards
piss.
that really forces people to play a certain way, because people would specifically special summon their monsters in defense position to avoid getting sucked up by Silent Honor Arc on the crackback. So, for instance, if you wanted to Dweller your opponent, you might Dweller in defense mode so that they don't suck up the Dweller on their turn, so that way they have to find another way to take care of Dweller by other means, right? Whether it's combat or any other thing. So I just love just the design of this card overall. It just does a lot of really cool things. I wouldn't say it's, when they use it on you, it's annoying, but it's, no one really, I feel like, has gripes with this card. I think it's just a very well-designed card for what it's worth. So you got it. You got it. All right. Speaking of well-designed cards, what did you think about this one?
Can't tell if sarcastic. True King of all calamities. Rank 9?
Correct.
Okay, Dark Monster, attack 3000, defense 3000. Worm, XZ effect 2+. Okay, I'm assuming you get 2 or more level 9 monsters.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah,
so
how
it's
many
2
have you
minimum,
got?
but you could do more.
Yeah, how many you got? Once per turn, quick effect, you can detach one material from this card and declare one attribute. This turn, all face-up monsters on the field become that attribute. Also, all monsters in your opponent's possession with that attribute cannot activate their effects or attack.
You can stop there. The last line of text isn't relevant for this. this.
Oh, cool. Let me read it again then. You can detach one material from this card and declare one attribute. This turn, all face-up monsters on the field become that attribute. Also, all monsters in your opponent's possession with that attribute in their possession. I have not heard this phrase. Does this mean cards they own?
Correct.
Okay. So it goes into their extra deck, it goes into their special deck, it goes into their side deck, it goes into their binder, it goes into their desk drawer at home. It goes everywhere and says, you're all the thing. I broke him.
I'm listening. I'm here.
Okay. He's checking right now in the desk drawer to see if the cards have been changed their attribute. Cannot activate their effects or attack, huh? You told me, for the purpose of this video, to assume that the cost's weren't that hard. It's 2+ level 9 monsters. You're telling me they just has this all the time?
Eternal format, buddy.
Oh
Eternal
my god.
format.
Okay. Once per turn. At least if you get this on the field and your opponent doesn't quick effect, hand trap, somehow get rid of it before their turn, then you activate this. And it makes it so all of the monsters can't use their effects or can't activate their effects or attack. What about entering the field effects?
That is, so we don't really have this gray area of entering the battlefield. If a monster has an effect that says when this card is summoned or normal summoned or special summoned, that activates on the field.
So that is activated because in Magic, they are triggered and activated and they're different. And
correct.
And
so that would
entering are triggered, but there is no difference here.
So it would be triggered if it says when this card is summoned, but for the purposes of this, activated or triggered doesn't matter. It's any effects.
It stops all of it.
Correct. And so for the purposes of possession, think about cards in their graveyard, in their banished pile, things that are like. Yes, technically, it could like theoretically permeate any part of the opponent's possession, but it's primarily like the public knowledge areas, if you will. So you would want to, for Calamity's sake, let's say your opponent's playing a deck that is all dark monsters, let's say, because Calamity's is dark. While yes, everything that's on the field also becomes that attribute and then would be subject to Calamity's negation effect, anything that is also in the graveyard and in the banished pile would also be subject to the negation effect if it's also dark, because it's only making the things on the field become that attribute. So if they're playing like a 2 attribute deck, you kind of have to pick which one makes the most sense for like things you're trying to stop. But if they're playing a mono attribute deck, it's going to hit literally everything. So just to give you a bit of context there.
Jesus, dude, it's also one-sided.
Yep.
So if you activate this on your turn, their hand traps don't work. And all your stuff becomes one type, so there's combo potential there.
The name is befitting of the card, that's for sure.
Oh my god. You don't get to play the game can't be a good thing. It has to be bad.
Why? That's like your MO as a control player. What do you mean?
Nah. Like, dude, for like the health of the game, oh my god. Like this thing hits the battlefield, and at that point, it has a quick effect. So if your opponent does the thing and they put something in Magic terms on the stack, they're summoning a monster, you can respond with this, and its effects just don't happen. Holy crap!
Well, to be fair, it says cannot activate their effects. So in that instance, you would actually, I think that effect would still resolve. So technically how you'd want to use this is you do it preemptively just so they don't get the opportunity to. Yeah, because the way it's worded, it says cannot activate their effect. So if the effect is already activated and you chain this, I think the effect still would resolve in that instance, but then every other effect after wouldn't work. But so typically the pattern is if you get this guy out, your opponent draws for their draw phase, you just fire this immediately. So they don't get really an opportunity to do anything.
Oh my god, it's so... What a monster. What a beast.
Literally.
So,
Literally.
the question then is like, is that what a level 9 that costs 2 level 9 is supposed to do? And this is so much easier to gauge in Magic. Because if it were a 9-mana card, I'd be like, that's what a 9-mana card's supposed to do. You get
Right,
9
like that should
mana
win you
together,
the
you're
game.
supposed to win. Yeah, it's supposed to be a game wrecker. Absolutely. And then, but we have that Yu-Gi-Oh thing where it's like, yeah, just assume you have 2 level 9s. And I'm like, well, if you can just have that, isn't this busted as... Like, what the fuck? If you just have 2 level 9s, how is this not insane? How is this not the stupidest card? Like, if Abyss Dweller, oh my god, we can't use our graveyards? And then you have this, it's like you can't use monsters. Monsters. Not only that, it's 2+. Why is it 2+? Are you telling me there are situations where you have 4 level 9s and you lock them out for 4 turns?
For context, the True King archetype has, I want to say all the True King archetype monsters are level 9. So that's kind of with the gimmick of the archetype. So there is a world if the game were to last several turns, if you had 3 or 4 level 9s as material, you could fire this effect on your turn, your opponent's turn, your turn again, your opponent's turn again. I'm just saying, that's kind of like the gimmick here. This is supposed to be like their boss monster.
It feels like it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be the end of all things, the boss monster. God, man. If I'm supposed to assume that you can have multiple level 9 monsters and that this is an extremely playable thing, it feels like I'm supposed to say this card is too busted and it got banned.
Okay.
So clearly this card is fine. All right, how do you deal? If a card like this is ubiquitous and a bunch of level 9s are ubiquitous and it's a big Timmy, summon big things and then pay it off with this big thing deck, then you turn to the other card types. You turn to the trap cards and the spell cards, right? And you have to negate this somehow. And I imagine it is a bit of a blowout if the opponent puts a lot into this to get trapped or spell carded. And I bet that's the balance. I might be an idiot. I'm
Okay.
gonna say it's not banned.
Final answer?
Yes.
Oh, CGP, you've learned nothing. This card is so banned. How could you have fallen into the trap? No!
Imagine thinking there are other types in your game to solve
Oh
problems.
my god. So, okay, let's give you the context. So, on release, Calamities was considered to be, I don't want to say it was considered to be fine. The issue was, although the True King archetype was the means to which you could probably summon Calamities the easiest, the rest of it was kind of all in on Calamities, and that was really all it had going for it. Later on, several years later, another archetype came along called Virtual World and had access to level 9s very easily, and that deck was good, and then Calamities took it over the top because now you had this insane turn 1 play to basically just auto-win the game if your opponent doesn't have an answer to it. And so essentially, this card just became one of the most annoying cards in the game and got banned not long after because Calamities is just a fucking mess of a card. And it was not a matter of if, but when this card was going to get banned. It was just, it needed the shell really to push this card over the top. And yeah, people despise this card. This card is hated by basically everyone except like the 2 people who like playing the deck that facilitated this. But man, this card is not okay for the game. This is so uninteractive and unhealthy. You were on the right track and you just veered into the brick wall. What happened, buddy? What happened?
I don't know. I just thought I just thought it would make them play a spell for once in their life. What do I know?
The problem is Yu-Gi-Oh! We're starting to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! 2 territory, and it's just so monster effect dense that it's rough. It's really, really rough. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, we got 2 more. 2 more. We're pushing the envelope on how crazy a card can be.
What can I say? I'm feeding you thumbnails. That's what I'm doing.
You are.
That is
true.
Content
That is true.
farmed. I know how this works. What the hell is this? Looks different. It looks so different.
It's because the picture quality is awful. Thank you.
Sky Thunder. Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. It's like we're doing Avas, we're doing mechs now. What the heck?
Yep.
All right.
We're doing mechs now.
Attack 3000, defense 3000, machine XZ, 2 level 12 it's only getting worse.
I will let you know that will not matter when you read the
By
first
the way,
line of
how
text.
can I tell if it's rank or level?
On this one, it's because the stars are black, is how you know. Because they're black with gold. Yeah. Typically, they look like Dragon Balls, as Voxy calls them.
Oh, yeah, sure. Once per turn, if a XZ monster battled this turn, you can also XZ summon Divine Thingy-Majiggy by using one XZ monster you control as material. Okay, so this is a different summoning
So
mechanic?
it's still an Xyz summon. Basically, if let's say you had Abyss Dweller or Digusto Emerald or whatever, if that declared an attack this turn, then in your second main phase, you can just overlay Zeus on top of that monster. So it's still like an Xyz summon, but it's an Xyz summon over another Xyz monster.
Transfer its materials to the card. Quick effect, you can detach 2 materials, send all other cards from the field to the graveyard. Okay. Yeah. Once per turn, if another card you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can attach 1 card from your hand, deck, or extra deck to this card as material. Oh, it has to keep going. We need this effect more. But once isn't enough. We have to rebuild. We must do it again.
Well, if you didn't notice, it doesn't have a once per turn clause on it. So
Jesus
hypothetically, if you have the material, you could fire it multiple times. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! 2, my friend.
Sure. Let's go. By using one XC monster you control as material, transfer its materials. If you get a monster and it has to battle. So battle just includes attacking, or does it include bumping into another?
It just has to attack and then survive. So hypothetically, if you attack directly, that would work. You could attack into your
Wait,
opponent's
shit,
monster
no, fuck.
that's in
Oh,
defense
god
position.
damn,
Maybe you take some
fucking.
damage to your life, but that still counts as battle. So that you could like bop their monster and still summon Zeus. Yeah.
And after, okay, so that means Zeus isn't attacking the turn it comes down, pretty much.
Correct. It's not attacking the turn it comes down because you have to attack first. So it's coming in the second minute.
Yep. But everything,
Which is a bit of a balancing mechanism for it.
everything has haste after turn 1, so it's not like this seems hard. 2 materials,
Nah.
send all other cards from the field to the graveyard. So this is happening second main. So you had to get a monster to attack, battle, survive, then you attach this, then you can blow up everything. So it
Correct.
sounds like you wouldn't really want that effect if your opponent had nothing on the field. So what you need is a small thing that you can attack and survive, and then do this to blow up all the other big things. Would be like the value-y way of playing it.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Well, at least that's tricky. That can be tricky. You might even have opponents who are smart enough to not leave a little piece around that your other XC monster could attack and survive.
Yep, I will say similar to 101, people knowing that this card exists, they will play around it in such a way that it is harder for them to bring this guy.
Yep. Once per turn, another card you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect. Seems like a thing that could happen. You can attach 1 card from the hand, deck, or extra deck. That's pretty wild. And then it goes to the graveyard, right? So you can kind of cheat a card from your deck into your graveyard in a way.
Yeah, you can.
Nasty. It's utility. It's got tutoring attached to it, by God. How messed up is it? It's messed up. Everything's messed up. How messed up is it? There's a few alarm bells there of like just getting to tutor the right card into your graveyard, but I don't feel like that's an unheard of effect in Yu-Gi-Oh. I feel like I've seen more cards that do that.
Yeah, I'll help you out a bit. That second effect, or that last effect rather, it's more added value than anything. It's because a lot of it's not really in your control because it says opponent's card effect. So it can happen, but it's not super likely. I would not say it's more of a bonus than anything. You're mainly playing this because it's a board wipe.
Right. So analyzing it on that, I think it seems like it seems situational, and like we kind of talked about, you can play in a way to get around it, which is usually a sign of a healthy card, and keep it like at least contained. I think it's a good role player. I think it's an awesome thing to be threatening. It might even be one of those things where you put it in your extra deck and it has a spot in there because why not? But then eventually you take it out of your extra deck, but the opponent plays around it anyway. That's kind of a got 'em if there's a little more value to having another spot in your extra deck. But yeah, I can definitely see like this probably resulted in some mega blowouts in its first month of existence, and then people adapted. So I'm gonna say awesome, good role playing, solid, powerful card like many of them are. I'm gonna say not banned.
You would be correct, CGB. Zeus is an absurd card. There was a point where I think a lot of people wanted this card to get hit to some capacity. It was restricted at times. I believe it was restricted both in the Asian territories and I think on Master Duel, our online client. I don't think it ever was in the TCG though. If I'm wrong, someone correct me. But it was never banned. It was never banned, so you are correct. Zeus is just a very phenomenal card. It's a payoff for playing Xyz-focused archetypes, because obviously, you know, some decks are more Synchro-focused, some are more Xyz-focused. There are some Xyz monsters I've shown you that, for Draco Sack's one of them. Draco Sack says, while you have the token, it can't be killed by battle. There's a few of these types of cards, so some of the best examples to bring out Zeus is that you would purposefully, whatever one of these your deck can facilitate, you would overlay into one of these cards that says cannot be destroyed by battle, ram into one of your opponent's monsters, it's going to survive, and then in the second main phase, you bring out Zeus, clear the whole board. If you're able to get more material under Zeus, which isn't too difficult, then you're able to have a board wipe that you can use once during your turn to clean up. And then if your opponent starts doing stuff on their turn, it's a quick effect, so you can nuke the board on their turn too. And then you just have a 3,000 guy on the field that you can smack your opponent with on the next turn. And another cool thing about this card is that it says, send all other cards from the field to the graveyard. This plays around a lot of different protection style of effects. So for instance, Draco Sack says it can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Sending to the graveyard is not the same thing as destroying. So it's actually it's a semantic difference that actually basically plays around almost every type of protection in the game. So basically when Zeus resolves, it's going to nuke everything with it. But phenomenal card. You can be very cheeky with it, and if you take control of your opponent's monster, that's an Xyz monster, let's say you use Big Eye, right, and take control of your opponent's Xyz monster, you can attack with their Xyz monster and then put Zeus over their Xyz monster so that they wouldn't get it back during like the end of the... I know Big Eye takes it permanently, but some things are only once per, for the end of the turn. So you can then permanently like basically remove their monster and get a Zeus out of it, which is very funny. So a lot of really cool tricks that you can do with this card. And yeah, I think it's a phenomenal card to have in the game. Might be a bit OP, to be honest, but it's fun.
It's also called Zeus. It's supposed to be good.
It is. It's supposed to be good. It's supposed to, a lot of people like Zeus. It's a fun card. And speaking of fun cards, we're going to end on the card, CGB, that was the foil to Tier Element. I know how much you love Tier Element and how much you loved learning about it. We're going to show you the card that they printed that was supposed to be the harbinger of the demise of Tier Element. So let's see what you think about this guy.
Obviously, it got banned. I don't need to read it. They had to keep Tier Elements at Tier 1. They couldn't just nuke everybody's collection into the ground.
Oh, no. I'll help you. This was printed after Tier Element was on its like giant tear throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history. So think about it from the business side of things. Think about it from the business side of things.
Oopsie daisy. Okay. They already got their money from those suckers.
There you go. Now you're thinking.
Kashtira Arise Heart. A dark monster with 3,000 attack and 3,000 defense that is rank 7 Machine XZ effect. 3 level 7 monsters. 3 of them. It's the first time we've done 3. Okay. Once per turn.
I'm going to let you know that's not going to matter.
Great. Once per turn, you can also XZ summon this by using
Let's
one
fucking go. What the fuck?
monster you control. If an effect of Kashtira Shangri-Lara was successfully activated this turn. Okay, great.
For the purposes of this, just assume you only need one Kashtira monster to overlay and Xyz summon this guy. So you don't need the 3, you can just use 1.
And that they all exist and aren't hard to get.
Correct.
Okay. Transfer its materials to this card. How many materials does it usually have?
So if you were to summon it with 3 level 7s, which is not hard, it would have 3 materials. But if you're just using any other Kashtira monster, it would probably just have one. But that may not matter when you read the rest of the card.
Okay. Any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Perfect. Once per chain, each time a card is banished, attach one banished card to this card as material. Once per turn, quick effect. You can detach 3 materials from this card, then target one card on the field to banish it face down. And I remember what you said about face down banishing. Okay.
What a better way to take care of Tier Element to make it that everything gets banished instead of going to the graveyard, huh?
And it says the graveyard. I'm assuming they mean both graveyards.
Correct.
So now anything you send to the graveyard is also material.
Correct.
And anything sent to their graveyard is material. And then once per turn, you can just use the material to banish everything.
Correct.
This was Anakin. This was bringing balance to the Force. They learned
Sure, let's go with
nothing.
that.
They learned nothing. This is, I 100% want the meme of like the lightsaber to the younglings with this card. Because I bet when this card showed up after Tier Limits was already gone, all the rest of the cards were like, what the hell did we do to deserve this? Then they got to deal with this. The enemy was already gone, and now this is here to just absolutely murder everything. Think of the younglings. Any way you get this out, right? Whether it has 1 material or 3 materials. I mean, it's nice if it has 3 materials already, right? And then you just banish something on the spot, gone, goodbye. But just get this out and do anything feeds it. Doing anything feeds it. And then it's just an ongoing removal engine. So assuming that you can chain off a bunch of cool things the turn you play it, you can remove all their board. And then they have to deal with it without using any graveyardy stuff, or it just keeps happening. Oppressive. Horrible.
Okay.
What?
Okay.
This was the answer. There were 2 paths, all right? One was we ban all this stuff, and the other was we just continue to nuke our game. And
Well, they did both. That's the best part.
I mean, they had a plan. They had a direction, and somebody,
they had a plan, all right.
Somebody was like, we can't. I mean, it might have been the players, but at least at some point they were like, we can't do that. And I bet, like, my gut says ban this mother. My gut says this didn't last long either. They were in an era where they went too far on the design side, and as they released it, they realized how far down that path they went, and they banned their way back to what they considered some kind of normal. I feel like this had to go too. This is the nastiest card, and I know that the level 9 thing, I knew it was nasty. I just thought maybe it was solvable by other cards and that it was a bait. I thought it was so nasty it was a bait. This just feels like somebody had an idea of what they were doing and they, in the middle, had to change course. And this feels, in Magic terms, if there are any Magic players, this feels like Omnath at the end of Fire Design. There were 1 million cards that were busted AF and they had to ban all of them to return to a sense of normalcy. And at the last, there was one last standing card that came out like a year after Fire Design started. That was obviously designed and missed, and they had to ban that card too, even though they tried not to. They were like, it's gonna be fine, and then they still had to ban it because all their designing was just messed up. The whole landscape was messed up and had to be nuked. I think this card got nuked too. My gut reaction says this card is banned. Banned. Yes, banned.
So Arise Heart is, like I said, was the answer to Tier Element. They'd released Tier Element, it ran rampant throughout the format, and then a set or two later, they bring us the Kashtiras, or at least the full suite of Kashtira support, because we got some prior to this anyway. And oh boy, Arise Heart is a card that people have feelings about. So at this point too, they've already nuked Tier Element on the ban list multiple times. But in addition to that, once Tier Element was basically out of the game because it had just gotten hit to the point where it was unplayable, and Kashtira is also just rearing its ugly head, this card became the entire game. This was the card that every deck had to build around, because if you weren't playing against Kashtira, or sorry, if you weren't playing Kashtira, you had to figure out how your deck was going to beat a Rise Heart, because this card single-handedly gate-kept so many decks from being playable during this time. This is very recent. This is only within the past few years. That it went from everyone playing Tear Element to everyone playing Kashtira. And there were a few other decks during this time that could compete with Kashtira, but Kashtira, by far and away, was just so dominant, and it's solely because a Rise Heart is just an absolute menace. The fact that everything's getting banished, the fact that it can just one-shot stuff by just taking off those materials, the fact that it's always gaining materials, the fact that you have to go on a side quest after any single card is banished to attach stuff to a Rise Heart was so annoying, and people were so sick of activating a Rise Heart to keep putting materials under it. This card is just an absolute menace. This is an atrocious design. Again, yes, I understand this was trying to solve the issue that was Tear Element, but my God, like, the thing about Tear Element was it was really interactive. There was a lot of, like, fun interaction you could have with your opponent. You saw some of the games. Like, you saw how much was going on, even though the number of turns in a game was very low. The amount of plays within those turns was quite high. You just slap down a Rise Heart, and it's just like, good luck. Like, have fun dealing with this, and no deck could really compete with it aside from a very few amounts. So, a Rise Heart was just an absolute menace, and people were just begging, and I mean begging for this card to get hit. And it took a couple ban lists for them to finally just delete this card from existence, because oh my God, this card was just so frustrating. It finally did get banned. You are correct. It's still banned. I don't think they're ever going to bring it back, because this card is just... This is almost everything wrong with card design, in my opinion.
I bet there was turn one scoops to this card.
Yep. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yep. 100%. Turn one, draw your card, look at board, scoop.
It's like if you didn't have the out for it, you were just not really doing it. It's kind of like Calamities in a way, but honestly a lot worse for several other reasons. But just horribly designed card. Like, this card is just not fun in the slightest. And I understand the role it was trying to serve, and again, they're trying to make their money selling the new set. Cool, but God, this card is a fucking nightmare.
Dude, it reads.
But you got it, though.
Holy crap.
It does. You did really good. I think you only missed like one or two this entire episode. Congrats. It looks like Xyz Monsters and you meld pretty well.
Hey, I guess so. I got really scared when you said new summoning, because God, how many can there be? But yeah, these ones, the XCs are all right.
I forgot that was big welcome I activated.
You like these better?
Fuck.
It's hard to pick my favorite. You know, it's like picking my favorite child, and I love all of them, really. But you know what? Kashtira just took my heart. Just absolutely took it. The Rise Heart is one of the dumbest cards I've ever seen anywhere. Absolutely.
You are not the only person to think that. You are not the only person to think that. So guys, that's going to wrap it up for another video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Let's go ahead and shout the patrons for all of their continued support. So shout out to Shout1317, Tim00x3, MBT Play Medolce, Moto, Cameron L. Smith, The Synchro Guy, Pony Stark, Dan the Man Hoban, Little Fadeleaf, Draconic, Dylan Murray Hunter, JW11860, Flannel Daddy, literally all of the guinea pigs, Cheeks McLafferty, Stolfin Amethyst, MBT Cancel by All Community soon, Cancel by All Committee soon, Cancel by All Players soon, Wonder Waffle, MBT and Nimnims, One Boxer Brief Fueled Night of Passion, Daniel Howell, Electrician of the Ice Barrier, Astro Random, Arco, and the Nova 129. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and we will see you next time.
You'll never stop me now, hero, not without murder and severe alcoholism and a dark, gravelly voice. That's where you're wrong, bucko, because I'm the anti-hero. No!
And this video has been kindly sponsored by the writing and world building software Campfire, who I am always happy to work with because they have been such a big supporter of me personally and professionally. Check out my links
I could
down
have
the
put that
description.
face down.
Welcome, you bunch of nerds, to 2023. Who, I ask, is the best
And kept it
anti-hero?
hidden what that
Momo?
card was. Let's
Anti-heroes have
pretend
been
I
all the
did.
rage for the last while, even when they've been terrible.
Although honestly,
And I'm putting on
my
inspector
normal
glasses
summoning
because we're
Droll and
here to figure
Lockbird
out
like this
why.
is a
They're fighting on the good side without those pesky
it's a
little
power
things. What do you call
move.
them? Morals? No, they are heroes, but without the traditionally heroic characteristics. Or they do good things, but with a sprinkling of personal and moral complications along the way. Some of the most popular heroes of the last generation have been anti-heroes, and you can usually find them somewhere between their childhood trauma and the bottom of a whiskey bottle. They're mostly some mix of these three features. 1. They do good, but for less good reasons. Profit, revenge, or because it's the only game in town. Star Wars' Han Solo is the classic example. You know, he only does good at the start once there's profit involved, before he changes as a person. 2, and perhaps the most famous, they do good, but with less good methods. Violent, careless, the chaotic good. V for Vendetta sees our anti-hero brainwash, torture, and manipulate an innocent woman to make her the perfect weapon to bring down a fascist autocracy, but he also knows poetry, so it's 50-50 really. Or 3, they do good things but face extreme inner demons that get in the way of them doing good. You know, characters like Jessica Jones, a depressed alcoholic with anger issues. And this last one is really where the anti-hero blends with traditional heroes, because all heroes have struggles, right? But you kind of know this type of anti-hero when you see them. And you gotta remember that these are just terms, they're labels we came up with. No character's gonna fit perfectly into any of these little boxes. It's gonna blend with fallen heroes and redemption arcs and traditional heroes. But whichever combination of these traits your anti-hero might be, the common theme seems to be that something is getting in the way of them doing good in a way that more traditional heroes don't typically face. And that is why the most compelling anti-hero stories tend to use these flaws to, part 1, complicate the plot. Elizabeth Salander in Stein Glassen's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is one of my favourite anti-heroes in every sense of the word. A tortured soul, an outcast visually and psychologically, she's a vigilante hacker whose personal problems make her reckless, she endangers herself, she's willing to do anything to take out her opponents, she drinks too much and refuses to accept help because it makes her feel weak and dependent. She wants to free herself and take down the system that has so badly wronged her. But all of these personal problems really get in the way of her doing that. She alienates her friends and allies, she nearly gets herself killed in numerous ways that she did not need to, and she makes the issues she's already facing worse by not facing up to them in healthy ways. Elizabeth's anti-hero characteristics complicate the plot, they raise the tension, they give her personal consequences for her struggles and decisions. Her jerkish tendencies and problems aren't just character flavor to make her seem edgy or gritty or, God forbid, cool. Alternatively though, anti-heroes can be part of a group, and their personal struggles can create interpersonal issues that get in the way of them integrating into the group. Like, Elizabeth Salander type might let the group down because they weren't there for a fight, because they were 16 hours high on meth. A Han Solo type might not help because there's just not enough money or glory or fame in it for them. Or maybe their violence causes backlash, it creates even more consequences than solving the problem they were going for in the first place was. Jet from Avatar is exactly this type of anti-hero. He wants to throw the Fire Nation out of his home, but he goes about that by killing innocent people in a Fire Nation village, and ultimately this brings him into conflict with Katara and Aang. You know, though Jet actually has a team of anti-heroes who all agree with him. Fundamentally, there's kind of this push-pull, right, where their anti-hero characteristics help them solve the tension in one way, but usually increases the tension in another. And that push-pull really matters, because if anti-heroes are defined by their moral grayness or their flaws, then what do those mean narratively? You've kind of got to explore that, otherwise they can come across as these Mary Sue type characters whose flaws never really come back to bite them, and just do things more efficiently than everyone else, and they're so cool and edgy and awesome. And you don't want that. But if you are designing an anti-hero to be part of a group, usually they're the Lancer type character who stands in contrast and opposition to the more traditional hero. It doesn't have to be this case, but it often is. More importantly, consider which anti-heroic features would create the most interesting dynamics with the rest of the group. Like, Tony Stark is the archetypical Lancer anti-hero. He's self-absorbed, he's arrogant, he's willing to do whatever it takes, and he's prone to a god complex. And these features deliberately contrast and work against the humble, grounded Captain America who does not believe that the ends ever justify the means. And this conflict plays out across the Civil War and Age of Ultron films. If Tony Stark's only anti-hero characteristics were his struggle with self-loathing or addiction, then he wouldn't nearly as strongly contrast with Captain America here, wouldn't create that same sort of tension. Alternatively, the emotional core of the group, the kind of heart character, will often have characteristics that complement and soften the anti-hero, you know? Katara is motherly, and Zuko misses his mum. Did I just suggest that Zuko has mummy issues? I mean, it's not wrong, but it's weird to say out loud. So you're not just designing an anti-hero in isolation, you're designing them as part of this web of characters. And that's true of all characters, but I think it's particularly true of anti-heroes. Now, Funnily enough, and my fiance is literally watching the Vampire Diaries in the other room right now, this type of anti-hero is also the textbook archetype for like the bad boy romance story. Now this may surprise you, but I have not read many of these. Not that I would ever admit it, but it's basically Twilight, right? Like it's the Vampire Diaries, the tortured anti-hero personal struggles that drive the girl away and destroy their relationship from time to time. They're not necessarily motivated by doing good, but by love and lust, and they'll burn the whole world down just for her. It's kind of the anti-hero archetype. But let's put this into an actual story, right? So let's say that Graham the Wizard who liked cats has extreme anger issues and only helps people in exchange for cat food. Every time someone comes after his cat, he doesn't just drive them off, but he beats them to death mercilessly while they cry out for mercy, to which he says,
I know not mercy's name, only justice.
Except this inability to control his anger makes him take up drinking, and the cat doesn't like this, so the cat leaves. Even though all he wanted to do was to protect her, Graham's issues here create personal and interpersonal problems that make it even more difficult for him to do the good that he actually wants to do, even if violence does protect the cat. But sometimes it can be even more important to show Part 2, the anti-hero outside the plot. People often think about anti-heroes purely in terms of how they murder bad guys or good guys from time to time, you know, how their issues complicate the plot. But it can add a real depth to show them in a circumstance where they are perfectly functional and healthy, where their moral grayness or their flaws don't really interfere. It can really humanize them in a way as well, something that doesn't have to do with their different motives or methods or their inner demons. Deckard from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the book that became Blade Runner, desperately wants a sheep, a flesh and blood animal, or at least one that he thinks is flesh and blood. V for Vendetta shows us a man who loves poetry and literature and architecture and makes
Iggy in the basket.
There is so much more to him than the fact that he tortures an innocent woman for months. Maybe they love collecting and pressing plants, or they keep a beehive in their backyard, or they're extremely good poker players, but responsible with their gambling, or they can sing really well and were once in a circus troupe. If the only engagement we have with an anti-hero is with that tortured side, with their anti-hero characteristics, they can seem a little bit one-dimensional, a lot of the time a little bit flat, and a part, of course, of making any sort of dynamic character is Part 3, anti-hero positive arcs. Character arcs can be positive, flat, or negative, and if an anti-hero has a positive arc, it will often be to do with them moving away from their anti-heroic characteristics to become something more of a traditional hero. Jessica Jones explores her struggles with alcoholism, anger, trauma following an abusive relationship, her isolation, self-loathing, and self-destructive tendencies, and her positive arc across the series is her learning to deal with personal issues in more healthy ways. Lisbeth's is about her learning to accept help. Han Solo's arc is one of him changing motivation, going from him doing good for less good reasons, for profit, to doing good because it's the right thing to do. Jet is an example of that second type of anti-hero, whose arc is changing methods instead, learning more moral ways of doing things, less violent, less careless, so he's no longer murdering innocent people, which is a great start. And in all of these examples, in Star Wars, in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, in Jessica Jones, the anti-hero learning these things is deeply connected to their ability to resolve the tension in the story. And that can make the ending more satisfying, more resonant, feel more interconnected, and it can raise the stakes of both these parts of the story, though it is not always done well. Martha! But let's think about what all this means narratively, because if the anti-hero story is about them changing methods, then they need opportunities in the story to reckon with the consequences of their methods at the start, you know? If they're changing motivation, then consider obstacles in the story that challenge their values, right? That let them see something in a new light that they did not see before, sparking change. Like, these have to come from somewhere. And it's because of all this that their arcs are often going to cross over with, like, redemption arcs. But I want to posit that this is not the only way of doing things, that there is another type of compelling anti-hero story that doesn't require you to undermine their anti-hero characteristics. Because the downside of this kind of positive arc is it feels a little bit black and white, doesn't it? You know, that there's this moral judgment on them, and the only way for them to get better is for them to become more of a hero, when that's not necessarily the case, and your story might not fit with that kind of moralism. And that's why I want to talk about The Last of Us, alright? So The Last of Us is fantastic for this in the character of Joel. He starts out as an abrasive, cold man with anger issues. He doesn't trust well, he's done a lot of bad stuff in the past, and he's willing to do bad stuff more, but his positive arc isn't about him becoming less violent or changing his methods. It's actually about him learning to love again, about learning to accept family back into his life in the form of Ellie, a surrogate child to him after losing his daughter. It is, in a way, him beginning to deal with his personal issues, like we talked about before, no longer being so cold and closed off, you could say, sure. But at the end of the game, his love for Ellie motivates him to do some truly terrible, arguably morally bad things. It is a positive arc, but it does not make him a hero, and it arguably makes him even more of a villain because of what these changes motivate him to do. So don't think that you need to do away with their violent tendencies or manipulative tactics. You know, they may be perfectly fine with how they see the world, and this is just what they think is okay to do. They may not be conflicted about those methods or motivations really at all, and you can improve them in other small areas. You know, people aren't heroes or villains or anti-heroes. You know, they're complicated human beings who don't fit into these little boxes we draw, right? And it's more important to tell a human story than an anti-hero one. Tell a story about people, not tropes. Part 4, Anti-hero flat arcs. Anti-heroes will often have flat arcs where they do not change that much at all, and instead, their function in the narrative is more about complicating the arcs of others. V from V for Vendetta doesn't really have a strong arc, not compared to Evie. He stays as morally ambiguous as he was throughout the film pretty much, and in fact, his willingness to brutalize and torture an innocent woman for months on end is fundamental to him beating the fascist autocracy. He does not regret it, he does not change his motivation or his methods. He does change his mind a couple of times, but the story is fundamentally about how V transforms Evie from a civilian into a revolutionary. In this way, anti-heroes can represent what other characters might become, or the path the hero could take. They often push other characters towards chaotic good or true neutral actions, or they challenge the motivations of other characters. You know, you're just not willing to do what it takes to get the job done, or you're not going far enough. Then it becomes more about the other character, right? How they're thinking and relating to the anti-hero, the struggles they face with the anti-hero's way of doing things that might be more fun or easier, and resisting that temptation to take the same path. Sicario is a fantastic film where the main character is constantly pushed by a troop of anti-heroes to accept that torture, murder, and law-breaking are fundamental to defeating the horrific cartels. And she grapples with whether she should really fall in line with that, till she says basically no. V for Vendetta is interesting because the character of Evie actually decides, yes, I am gonna be like V, I am gonna take up these methods and motivations. But it's not portrayed as a bad thing, because sometimes these stories are more morally complicated than that. Character arcs can usually be pinned down to something like what the character wants, what they actually need, and the lie they believe about themselves or the world. In the case of Sicario, the anti-heroes kinda represent what she thinks she wants till she sees what she really needs. In the case of V represents sort of what Evie needs instead of what Evie wants. She thinks she wants a stable, safe, normal, ordinary life, but what she really needs is purpose and change and a moral world. In Margaret Atwood's The Testaments, Aunt Lydia, an anti-hero in her own right, represents the lie that another character believes. She thinks that Gilead is a great place to live, a moral place, and Aunt Lydia exposes the truth. It's a dystopia. With each of these flat arc anti-heroes in these stories, the characteristics, the methods and motivations that they have seem to embody, you know, the lie or want or need of some of the characters surrounding them. So, when designing your flat arc anti-hero, think about how they fit into those things for the surrounding characters. Part 5, Anti-Hero Negative Arcs.
I don't like younglings.
Think Anakin and Walter White, where those anti-heroic aspects get the better of them in these tragic stories and even turn them into full-blown villains. Anakin actually demonstrates heroism as well as you possibly could. You could even call him a traditional hero, but see, there's a bit of a bait and switch because he's actually so fixated on protecting his loved ones, that's his motivation, that it drives him to do terrible things, just as much as it drives him to do good things. He does good, but he's not doing it because it's right, he's doing it for glory, for love, till those motivations get so mixed up that soon enough, he's committing war crimes. What makes a tragedy like Hamlet or Macbeth so compelling is that oftentimes they will be pursuing something totally sympathetic and understandable, but they get it at the cost of everything else, including their morals. And 2, each individual step towards that tragedy is usually understandable, even if the full arc of it isn't, you know, or at least until they've gone too deep that it's too far to go back, and suddenly it's just a downhill slope from there. I don't know why I slept on Breaking Bad. I haven't watched a show that fast in so long, but Walter White's story is this brilliant mix of, you know, his ego and making terrible decisions and understandable motivations and then bad intentions and his flaws and his mistakes and not having much of a choice. It just all works so well. In negative arcs, anti-heroes will often start out conflicted about what they're doing, but end up clinging to what they think they want instead of what they truly need, you know? Anakin thinks he wants power because he thinks it's going to solve his problems, and Walter White thinks that he wants credit, fame, he wants to have a sense of control in his life, but these compelling negative arcs start with pretty understandable motives. Walter wants to leave money behind for his family when he dies. How can we not respect that? But how far does that go? But that motivation does tend to get warped over time, you know? Walter says, he insists that he's doing it for his family. But we can see, over time, with each passing episode, that he's really doing it for himself. For power, for money, for glory. Part of what makes Anakin's anti-hero story so heartbreaking is that it's done parallel with this deteriorating relationship with Obi-Wan, kind of like Walter and Hank. I tend to find that literary symmetry can be a fantastic tool to demonstrate the change and decline in an anti-hero, to really hurt your reader. The Last of Us Part 2 hurts so damn much because we see Ellie lose the last aspects of her better nature and humanity as she's corrupted and gives into her inner demons. But that's really made effective because of how we see her on the farm with Dina. We see that she can be happy, we see that she can be whole, and then at the end of the game, when she's alone, when she arrives and there's just nothing and she has lost even that part, when that relationship has been destroyed, that's the emotional hit. That symmetry that demonstrates where this arc has taken her, even if it started out with understandable motivations that she wants to take revenge for basically her father figure. You know, this sort of symmetry can really work because it can be a sharp juxtaposition where we didn't really necessarily see it before, because really good negative arcs, you almost don't really notice that they're slipping, you know? It's so gradual, it's so understandable, it's so, of course it happened this way. Part 6, lovable anti-heroes. Maybe you don't care if they're likable. Characters don't have to be likable, they just have to be interesting. Fun to read, fun to watch, but maybe you don't want your jerk anti-hero to just be a jerk. 1, help us understand why they are the way they are. Like, very simple, right? In The Last of Us, Joel, in a moment of anger, tells Ellie, this poor girl, who has grown up to adore him and never really known any family herself, he says,
"You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad."
We hate him for doing that. It's painful to watch, it's cruel even, but we've also seen how Joel's daughter was killed and that he has never really gotten over that. It broke him. He's always blamed himself and he's unwilling to see that he could ever find a new family, any new happiness. This recontextualizes his behavior as an expression of his pain that we can sympathize with, that humanizes him, that even foreshadows his arc to come. Of course, sometimes them being a jerk is just a flaw they need to work on. There's no traumatic backstory to it, and that's totally fine. It can be really important for the character dynamics and the tension in the story. And maybe there's no childhood trauma for why they act the way they do. They just have a different moral calculus. Full Metal Alchemist Roy Mustang is kind of that.
Mission, and he carved a transmutation circle into his hand.
And in that case, it's really important to, too, give them moments of vulnerability or kindness. Kind of like giving them characteristics outside of them just being an anti-hero. One of my favorite series as a kid was Artemis Fowl, alright? It's about a teenage evil genius anti-hero, right? And he's selfish, he's rude, he's obnoxious. I mean, the first book opens up with him pretty much torturing a fairy and blackmailing them to give them their holy book, or they'll let them die. But we also see that that attitude does not apply to everyone. He is very respectful of his butler and he loves his mother. I wish they made a movie of it. I just wish they made a movie. It'd be so good. Roy Mustang is good to his companion, Hawkeye. Elizabeth Salander is regularly rude to her friends and allies, but we also see how she can be cooperative and respectful of those who, in turn, are kind and respectful of her space as well. Particularly a doctor in the third book who doesn't pry about her personal life and just helps her get better. These are good scenes because they really contrast with the personal and interpersonal issues that we usually explore, and it kind of avoids what I'm gonna call gritty fatigue, where you just get frustrated because these anti-hero characters won't stop being edgy. Daredevil scenes where he talks with the priest are kind of similar in a way. They show that these people have other positive characteristics, or moral rules, even if rarely. Perhaps they don't kill kids, or they don't steal from a terminally ill person like they were going to. It can be as small as them petting an animal. Some stories will pair the anti-hero with a foil character who is kinder, perhaps their conscience, maybe the main hero, and yep, also just like the bad boy romances where the woman usually plays that role, and these characters usually show that they do have a more positive side and can foreshadow a positive arc. Like in Logan, we know that Wolverine is going to take care of little Daphne Keene, little Wolverine, because we see that he has a gentler side with Professor X. He's taking care of this old man. He's still got a lot of empathy in him. 3, make them better than the villain. Like V, he tortures and brutalizes an innocent woman, but he's doing it for a good reason. He's doing it to bring down the fascist autocracy. And the fascists, they're torturing a bunch of people and they're not even doing it for a good reason, And the Punisher, he guns down people by the dozens, but it's always worse people than him, isn't it? So it's fine, no moral quandaries there, but this does lead us to a narrative question that I've been thinking about a lot. Does the anti-hero need to act the way they do to stop them? Do you hint that maybe they don't need to? Maybe they go too far? In V for Vendetta, the story pretty unequivocally says, yes, you do need to do this sort of thing. Punished? Maybe not. Maybe there's some room that he's going too far. The answer to that question is going to change the moral relationship your reader has with your story and with the anti-hero character. It changes the morals of your story world. When you look at characters
I thought I was
what about them? What about their tactics? What does it say?
Also, I can't activate the card I just said. Oh no, wait, because I can't activate it anymore.
This is an interesting space for character change and character flaws. Part 7. There's no such thing as an anti-hero. So, Reddit over at OSP brought up anti-heroes a few years ago and made a pretty interesting point. What defines an unheroic or heroic characteristic? Like, smoking used to be normal, every character did it, but now a character smoking is a subtle symbol of them going off the rails and more associated with anti-heroes. What exactly defines a hero is going to change over time and from culture to culture. Should they be an obedient soldier or a lone wolf who does what they think is right? And remember, These are just boxes we have drawn around characters. Like, some people would not consider Iron Man an anti-hero at all, and that's okay. I try to take sponsors that I feel you guys will genuinely like, will actually be helpful. But not only does Campfire have a fantastic writing and world building platform, but I'm even happier to recommend them because I know it's run by good people. They have consistently supported our charity live streams every year and done a ton more. You can try it, by the way, totally for free. No obligation. That is awesome at my link down in the description below. Campfire lets you create worlds and maps and timelines and plan out your stories and magic systems and organize all your world building, and more than that, write inside it, create, a Bible for your story. But I think, genuinely, one of their best features is their character profile system. We've been talking about characters today. You can give them every detail you can imagine if you want it. Integrate it with a planned character arc, their place in the story, and if you're creating anti-heroes, it's perfect. Don't know where to start with creating characters? Bam,
I think
Campfire
we
knows.
can genuinely
Need
get
to
away
write
with
out
only
your
playing
enemies'
one of
Zutara
these.
fanfic?
This is
Bam,
good to draw,
Campfire knows how to do that too. But the feature
but you
I
don't
appreciate
want to
most
draw
about
it that
Campfire, I mean
badly
this
since
really is its
you're fully
payment
committing to
system.
Mikanko when you
this
play
might
this.
help you, but my stories
I think it's
actually
better
don't
off
tend to
as
have
just a
magic
one-of.
systems. But I do need a way to remember all the details I've given to my characters. I'm terrible at that. So I would only pay for the features I want and need. So I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. 1. You get one of the best writing and world building softwares in the world. 2. I get to make more of these videos and not worry about how many views they get. And 3. You support me and
Shit.
good people.
Not
And I know
very
you want to
good,
be
eh?
good people. The links are all below. You can try it for free. Go on, you deserve it. I know you do. Click the link. Summary with Momo the cat. She's here. She's gonna point out all the summary things that really matter right over there. Number 1. Anti-heroes usually have some combination.
It doesn't
of
matter,
doing
the
good
way
things,
we
but
win
facing
going
extreme inner
second
demons,
is
doing good things with bad
by
reasons, or
attacking
doing
into an
good things
opponent's
with less good
monster.
moral methods. Secondly, their unheroic characteristics typically
Let's just
increase
go
the
first
tension
again and
of
hope for the
complicating
best.
their relationships with lovers or the team, or their ability to do good in the first place as they grapple with their inner demons. Their struggles are often best designed to contrast with the other characters in the story. Thirdly, grit and edginess isn't necessarily more interesting than showing where they can be vulnerable and functional. Give them aspects outside of their anti-hero status. Fourthly, their character arcs often involve confronting or progressing towards more heroic characteristics, changing motivation or changing methods, and this often crosses over with redemption arcs. Fifthly, sometimes their arc is totally disconnected from unheroic elements, or maybe they have no arc at all, and instead their unheroic qualities complicate the arcs of others. They may also have negative arcs driving the tension as they devolve into villainy. Literary symmetry can be a valuable tool here. Sixthly, giving them relatable or sympathetic elements often helps. Help us understand why they make the decisions they do by showing us their emotions and experiences that underpin their actions. Give them a character, pet, or activity that demonstrates their capacity for more positive traits, and make them better than your villain. Unless you want to blur that line, of course. And that is anti-heroes. Who is your favourite anti-hero? Let me know down below. And if you haven't got it yet, pick up On Running World Building Volume 2. Thousands of you picked it up over Christmas. Thank you very much. Volume 3 is coming this year, and then we'll have like a trilogy of them. How cool is that? Anyway, stay nerdy, and I'll see you in the future. We both will.
That's any monster, huh? Similar to Detonator. I'm an idiot. I can't summon jack shit. Damn it. I swear I keep getting these two confused. Damn it. I didn't mean to. Pretend I didn't fucking do that, please. Okay. I hate the holograms.